What time is it? It's nation time.
Welcome to the AfterWords program. My name is Baba Kafense Chike, your host, and I'm joined by Cardinal Swad, this week's preacher of our sermon out of Egypt. Welcome to the AfterWords program, Cardinal Swad, and thank you for today's sermon.
Thanks for having me.
The scripture for today's sermon comes from the book of Numbers, chapter 22, verses 1 through 3 and 5 through 6. And the scripture discusses the response of the people of Moab to the nation of Israel as they emerge from the wilderness and prepare to enter the promised land. And in the scripture, it states that the people of Moab fear the nation of Islam. Would you elaborate on the relevance of this scripture in terms of the context of the sermon?
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is we really need to challenge ourselves to look differently at the traditional view of the Hebrews' time in Egypt, because we've all been taught that the Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt, but I asked the question: when in history has an oppressed people ever benefited from the religion of their oppressors? I can't find an example, but in this particular telling of the Bible narrative, the Egyptians, if you go back to history, the Hebrews absolutely benefited. So it just challenges us to look differently at their time in Egypt, because I posit that, it's already historically proven historical fact that Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and so many other of the world's major religions trace their roots back to ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. And so when this people are emerging out of Egypt, they are different than Moab and other nations had experienced in the past. In the past, they were beat down. In the past, they seemed to be pushovers. In the past, they seemed to themselves like grasshoppers, and everyone else looked like giants. But now this is a people, and that's the thing that just really sticks out to me: a people, a people, a people. It's that they're unified, they're together, they are moving as one, and so that is a powerful force. And when the king of Moab looks out, he is fearful, so fearful that he starts calling all of his homies to come help him and start cursing this people, because they're just right across the bank of the Jordan. They're right next door, and he's fearing for his life, because when you are a people, that means you're a force. That means you can't be mistreated and abused and pushed over without some consequences and repercussions.
And I think you also emphasize, and I think this reiterates the point that you were glad that although I'm paraphrasing, that the nation of Israel came out of Egypt, but Egypt didn't come out of them. So they didn't leave that part of themselves behind. Could you discuss how that connects to our need to fully embrace our Africanness, to create a people, a nation, and legacy, and to embrace our intergenerational struggle, which is the theme and the focus of this 71st anniversary?
So yeah, I say that Hebrews came out of Egypt, but thank God Egypt did not come out of the Hebrews. They kept it with them, and I think that's important, because when we're celebrating Egypt, ancient Kemet, as being this this birthplace of religion, art, science, civilization, we're not just celebrating ancient Kemet, because historians have shown, have proven, and they're just adding to that proof every day, that the greatness of ancient Kemet was a whole lot like the Harlem Renaissance. It wasn't just sisters and brothers who were from Harlem that made the Harlem Renaissance what it was. It was Black folk from all over the country, all over the diaspora, that came together and made the Harlem Renaissance what it was. And what scholars are finding out, they're finding all these connections with the people of Kemet and the people of West Africa, who created the ancient kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, Songhai, with the sisters and brothers from Central Africa, with the sisters and brothers from South Africa, and the Egyptians themselves will tell everybody that their greatness came from their grandmama and them, who came from further south, Nubia, what we now call the Sudan. And so when we're celebrating the greatness of Kemet, we are really celebrating the greatness of all African people. So they were bringing everything with them to the table, and how that relates to us. We have to look at this the same way, and really our founders did. That's what made and makes the shrines of the Black Madonna so powerful, that our founders grounded themselves in our ancestors' history and knowledge, and use all of that to create a nation, a movement that is still standing to this day. And so, you know, I say over and over again, we've got to go back to our roots when we're celebrating our founders. We're really not just celebrating our beloved founder, the Honorable Jaramogi Abebe Ajman, and the Klieg family, and Alice Strother, and all the founders that we celebrate. We're really going all the way back and celebrating our African ancestors who laid the foundation for so much of what is foundational to us. And, you know, I also make the point that when we're talking about out of Egypt, we're really talking about best self theology, because for them, religion was a process. It wasn't about just singing, shouting, frothing at the mouth. It was about getting better every single day. It was a process, literal best self theology. Their word for love, myrrh, M-E-R, the symbol, the ancient Egyptian symbol for that is a sister or brother working a garden hoe, literally putting in some work. So for them, love wasn't just flowery words and, you know, touchy-feely whatever's. It was about what you do, what you do, what you do. And so the founders of the Shrines of the Black Madonna, they brought all of that with them when they founded our movement. And so it has everything to do with our anniversary month theme, everything to do with our history, our present, and whatever we do in the future.
I just like to iterate what also came out in the section where you talk about this connection to celebrating the founders, but really celebrating African people overall, that you reference the sacred trust from the past, those in the past, as well as to those in the present, which as well as those in the future, which speaks to cultural continuity and a consistent forward flow of our people, our struggle, and the work that we do. And you made a comparison in your recent words. You talked about the distinction of African religion, or our interpretation, or how we interpret our religion. But you make a comment in the sermon also, something to the effect, you explain that preachers that you know, many preachers that you know from seminary or wherever, know the African origins of Western religion and the work of scholars like Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, and Check Antijoke, yet they don't or won't teach it. Why do you think that is? Why won't they teach the truth?
Well, you know, like I shared in the sermon, when I was at Candler School of Theology, sisters and brothers, we'd eat lunch together. We'd be talking about the African origins of Christianity. But then when I asked them, so do you preach that in your church? And they said no. And basically it's because they knew that they would be fired, or they at least thought that their congregation would not accept a brand of Christianity, so to speak, that was inconsistent with what they had been born and raised on. And so they made business decisions not to share that knowledge with their congregations. And so, you know, my whole point is we really need to be thankful for the founders of our movement, because they didn't take that position. They took the position that we have to know this. That's the only way we are going to be able to move forward and, you know, honor the Messiah potential and inner divinity in us, is by connecting and reconnecting with our historical roots. And there's no separation between what we learn in the classroom and what we teach and preach in the pulpit and what we do on a daily basis, seeking to build a nation, it's all consistent.
And as I listen to you again talk, I mean, it's so rich. It's like the traditional mainstream Christianity, and this maybe is what makes the distinction of what's done by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. These other ministers are not preaching to liberate their congregants or their followers. It's really more to keep them in the same mindset, whereas what we do lends more towards the essence of what liberation theology is all about. Is that a reasonable assessment?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I appreciate the most about our fellowship, our congregation, that we are willing to challenge what we believe. We're willing to accept new knowledge and new information and allow ourselves to wrestle with that. Like, how does that jibe with what I thought I believed? I think that is one of the most underappreciated aspects of our fellowship, of our movement. I just absolutely love that. There's a book that's being read by many members of the congregation titled Think Again, which is really just kind of underscoring our approach and reminding us that we need to think again as well. Always think again, always challenge, because that's where growth is. Growth happens in those areas of discomfort, so to speak.
Yes, and as we find ourselves in the 71st anniversary of doing this work, could you say a little more, and I think Best Self Theology speaks to this, about how the programs of the church counter our lengthy sojourn in this, what you call the wilderness of whiteness, and counters what you say is the removal of the soul from spirituality. So we know our time here, we've been given a perspective that kind of de-souls the essence spirituality. So in terms of our faith or the faith of our people, could you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, because I think we only have a few seconds left. But everything we do is about us seeking to access God power, to use that God power. And so whatever we do that connects us with our past, so not so that we can just glorify our past, but so we can learn lessons, take those lessons. The whole point of Sankofa is about, looking back in order to move forward, taking the best of and learning from, our mistakes as well. But putting that into tangible institutional practices and programs so that we can move forward, and we'll move forward. And sometimes we take a few steps back, but that's all right. We learn from our mistakes, but we keep it moving forward because we're always willing to think again, to wrestle, and to listen to what God is telling us right now, not just what God told us 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Thank you again for a powerful sermon and for this insightful conversation. I'd like to also thank our viewers for joining us and encourage you to continue to join us each week as we bring you powerful sermons and very insightful conversation that follows. So I'd like to thank you for the message today and for your work, and thank our viewers. And I'd like to close by simply saying that in the words of our patron saint, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, "Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will."
What time is it? It's nation time.